We respectfully submit that this was not a simple hit-and-run case with an injury. This case resulted in the death of our daughter, Megan, a 20-year-old college student with a promising future, a community of family and friends, and a life expectancy of over 80 years. It is hard to understand that Seymour, who has shown a lack of accountability and remorse, will only face 2.5 years in prison. The death of our daughter should never have happened if this individual had followed the law and did not drive under his suspended license. We ask that all involved aspects of the legal system ensure that Frederick Seymour serve out the maximum time possible. We also ask that his license be revoked permanently. He has shown over and over that he is not capable of being a responsible citizen behind the wheel.
We are about to watch his full parole hearing out of Connecticut, and you might not believe it if you didn't see it, but it's just 2.5 years after being convicted of taking her life. To add insult to injury, the TA gave him a 6-month suspended sentence for similar driving offenses just 1 month before he took her life. Let's jump to the initial court hearing after he was found from leaving the scene, and then we'll watch the full parole hearing followed by a detailed unpacking. And thank you to Richard for that.
I am greatly concerned about public safety in this situation.
58-year-old Frederick Seymour of Suffield appeared in court, charged in connection to the hit-and-run death of UConn student 20-year-old Megan Voisin. Suffield police told me that on Friday evening, they were about to sign Frederick Seymour's arrest warrant when he suddenly walked into the police department, provided a statement, giving himself up. According to the state prosecutor, Seymour confessed to the hit and run, but Seymour shook his head.
The defendant did turn himself in and he did confess. That does, however, have a number of failure to appears. Given again that and the seriousness of the allegation, state thinks $800,000 bond would be appropriate.
The incident happened on October 23rd here at the intersection of Thrall Avenue and Route 159 in Suffield. Megan was crossing the street with friends and was killed. Megan's obituary reading in part, quote, "She had a unique ability to forge special relationships with every person she knew. She brought joy, laughter, and compassion to each of those relationships." The social media page for her UConn sorority reading that she was, quote, "someone who could light up any room with her infectious smile, unforgettable laugh, and endless love." Back in court, we learned Seymour has a lengthy history of past motor vehicle and drug convictions.
There's a record in Massachusetts for reckless driving.
His public defender said that Seymour, who lives here on Poplar Street in Suffield, has been overwhelmed with family responsibilities.
Mr. Seymour indicates to me that he has been helping to take care of his elderly father.
In honor of Megan's memory, a fund has been set up in her name here at Suffield Community Aid, with money designated to help young people in the community.
Mr. Seymour, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start with the offense itself, evading. What happened?
I was there and I knew that I was going to go to jail, and I made this bad decision in which, I went because my father, I take care of my father. And I went there knowing that I was going to jail to let him know what was going on and that I would be going to jail and make sure he was going to be taken care of, which was stupid.
This happened, that's October 23rd of 21?
Excuse me?
That was October 23rd of 2021?
Yes, sir.
So how did you know all of that? Up front,
That I was going to do time because I signed a paperwork with the prosecutor 4 months before because I was driving under suspension for tickets, and he said that he would nolly them if I wasn't driving, if I didn't drive for a year. If I did drive, then I was going to have to do 6 months without going to court and go directly to jail.
So you hit somebody in the road.
Yes.
Regardless of how that happened, you hit somebody in the road.
Right.
And then you just left without stopping?
No, sir. I got out of the car. I went up there and everything else. And then I seen that she was being taken care of by an EMT. And I stood there and I told the truck driver there that my name was Fred Seymour. They knew who I was at the, what happened. I didn't just peel off or leave.
But you didn't wait for the police.
No, sir, I didn't.
Why were you driving that night?
And I said I shouldn't have been, and I drove because the girl that was going to drive, she was been drinking, and I didn't want, stupid. I don't drink.
You don't drink.
No, sir.
You don't drink any longer?
No, I don't drink. Period. I have a drink here and there, like on my birthday, things like that. Otherwise, I don't drink.
So I guess I'm just having a hard time reconciling, like, if I don't drink and I wasn't intoxicated, why, and I just hit somebody with a car who winds up deceased, why wouldn't I have just
I
stayed right there?
panicked. Things were going through my head. I panicked. I was worried about my father, who was going to take care of him and make sure things like that. And I panicked. I was just, the girl that was in the car there with me too, she was like bringing up things, saying, your father, what about your father? And things were just going through my head, sir. I made a bad choice. I should have stayed there.
So you have a background with substance use.
Yes, sir.
How do you deal with recovery?
I'm clean. I mean, this and that. I don't use. I mean, I have been in here now and stuff like that, but I have no intentions at all of ever doing drugs again. Right now, my main focus is to get out, work, take care of my father, and spend quality time with my father. He needs my help. I do his laundry, I do the cleaning, I do the cooking. Right now, my sister's trying to do it, and she has a full-time job, plus she has her own children and things. So he's 80 years old, so that's my main focus: to get out, take care of him, and just do the right thing.
So you've taken tier 2.
Yes, sir. Invoices.
Okay, and with tier 2, what did you learn that you've contemplated and applied to yourself through that program?
I learned that I need to watch things that are triggers and things like that for me. I also learned that, I need to take responsibility for my own actions, and I need to hang around and be around positive figures, things like that. I also was talking to Mr. Edie about, maybe if after I get my license and try to get things straight, maybe going and join that program to try to help people if I can.
So do you think you have a problem? Like,
With drugs?
it's not like there's not substance use behind, in your background.
Yes, I did have a problem, and my mother, I stopped and I was doing good, and then my mother passed away on me, and things got a little worse. But I mean, if I have to get programs and stuff like that on the outside and keep it, I will keep it up. But I have no intentions and have no will to want to go back to that. Right now, like I said, my father is my main concern, and I can't take care of him if I'm going to be doing things like that.
Yeah,
All I
I'll
want to do.
tell you one of the things that's my concern is What happens when your father passes?
Well, hopefully, sir, I'm gonna have my life in order,
Well,
and hopefully I can
that's-
have him. Maybe I have to go to meetings. I think maybe I need to plan meetings. You know, NA meetings, keep it positive, get a sponsor, stuff like that. So I think, I think that's that's a good question. I think I need to look at that and stay focused on the, staying clean.
How about voices?
Voices was that one hit home. That one's the one that you know, I was sitting here blaming people and stuff like that, and that just opened my eyes to, like, I made them choices that night. I made a choice about getting in a car. I made a choice of leaving, and the victims and who's being punished for it. Um, there was a lot of things that you do in life that you don't think about the consequences, what happens from those choices that you make. And it was an eye opener. Made me see clearer.
How about the impact of your actions on others?
My impact on others.
The impact of your actions on others.
Right now, I want to get out, like I said, and help my father. I want to be better.
No. The impact of your actions on others.
Impact on others. You mean what I caused for the accident?
I mean, is that something that you learned in voices?
Oh yes, I definitely learned. That's what I was saying. I learned a lot in voices that, taking responsibility for what, you do and how it affects others. How this family that lost their daughter and what it's done to them and how it changed their life. And what it's done to my family, me being gone. I mean, what I've done to my family, my sister, I put a load on my sister, my father. I mean, the stress that he has to do now, trying to do things himself instead of me being there to help him. I mean, that takes a toll on his life, where he could be living longer and he has heart problems. I mean, I've done a lot of things that have, really affected many people out there.
What's your plan for work?
I have a few jobs that I need to check on that I would think, but also my sister's best friend, she owns a temp agency, and she said that she would find me work immediately.
You're gonna live with your father?
Yes, sir. I'm going to be staying with my father and taking care of my father full time, along with working. That's what I'm trying to find. She's trying to get me a job that's close to home too, so I'm not too far away from him.
Okay. Madam Chair, I don't have any further questions.
Yeah. Mr. Seymour, you said it was an accident and it wasn't your fault, right? So,
Right. What I'm saying is, it's my fault, my choices that I made that night, but they found that the accident wasn't in my fault. I wasn't blamed for the accident, but I am blamed because I got into the car and drove. And I should never have gotten into the car that night anyhow, period.
so do you think your statement says that you're truly accepting responsibility for what happened?
Yes, ma'am. I take responsibility for what happened. I should have never gotten into that vehicle. Before I was blaming, trying to blame everything like, this wasn't my fault, blah, blah. And I truly see from the time and courses and things that I've taken that, I should have never made choices better than what I made. I should have stayed, never gotten to the car, period, first of all, and drove. And I should have never left the scene. I should have stayed there no matter what.
The other thing is, Mr. Seymour, you said you did not agree with the sentence that was given and felt you should have only been given 3.5 years. Can you comment on why you think that?
Yes, ma'am, because they offered me that, and that was what I agreed to, and I was going to go to court. And then 2 days before I was supposed to go to court, they got a phone call from somebody, and they took the judge who made this, took the offer off the court, took it off the board, and said that she was no longer giving me that sentence because the victim's mother called somebody and that person called somebody, I guess, and that's what happened. But I mean, I at the time I'm saying that it's just, I'm more worried about getting out there and helping my father. And I feel like the more I'm in here, I'm not helping him.
You know, Mr. Seymour, you have not expressed any remorse at all for the victim or the victim's family.
I am remorsed. I had to go through mental health. I had to talk to mental health. I was having cold sweats. There's not a day that goes by that something doesn't remind me of this that happened. I am so sorry about what happened. I wish there was something I could do. And all I can do is try to give back to the public and try to help others and be a better son, be a better brother, be a better person. That's all I can do. I mean, I'm very sorry for what happened. I wish it was me. I wish it was me lying down there instead of her. I mean, I'm 60 years old and that girl was young. I wish it was me instead of her.
Well, I have no further questions for you, Mr. Dorgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, sir. How you doing?
So, I mean, my colleague got to you about the length of the sentence, right? So you got 12 years suspended after 5 with 5 years probation, and it's a 50% charge. You're eligible, after 2.5 years. You mentioned numerous times you want to get out to help your father, what was already stated, your license was already suspended at the time when you were driving. And the loved ones of the family that lost their child will never have the opportunity to be able to help that child as she was growing up, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, that's concerning. I know my other colleague asked, you said, it wasn't my fault. Well, whose fault was it?
No, it's my fault.
Okay. I know.
My fault.
I read, in the interview you had with the parole officer that you stated it wasn't your fault. I mean, poor individual was just going to retrieve her phone from the street, and then this incident happened, right?
Yes, sir. When I'm saying it's not her fault, I'm taking responsibility. I did what I did. I made the choice. But yeah, I'm just, it was a tragic accident, and I'm very sorry that this happened. And I'm at fault for driving, and I am wrong here, totally. It's just a situation where I don't know how to explain it. And it's just, the words are all coming out wrong. I don't know how to explain it. I'm very sorry about this happening to this young lady. And I know she had her life in front of her and she was doing good. And I wish it was me instead of her. And the words are coming out wrong. I'm not a good talker. I don't know how to express it, but I wish to God it was me instead of her. I mean, she had her life in front of her, and I've lived my life, and I don't know how to explain it. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Seymour. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. So we have no further questions, but we do have victim input. So you can listen, but you cannot say anything. Ms. Vasquez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. I am going to be reading a statement that the victim's family sent us. Dear board members, this is written to share the immeasurable impact of the untimely death of our 20-year-old daughter, Megan Voisin. In this letter, we outline the strong case against Frederick Seymour and the impact that Megan's passing continues to have on our family and community. It is our hope that our advocacy for Megan will continue to be considered throughout Mr. Seymour's sentence so that a tragedy like this will never happen again. Considering that the sentence for persons evading responsibility in the operation of a motor vehicle is 2 to 20 years, there are many other factors in this case that would call for continued consideration throughout the sentence. This individual was an admitted drug user who has been arrested several times on drug-related charges and who also has an extensive history of traffic violations in Connecticut. He has had his driver's license indefinitely suspended, has continued to drive with a suspended license, and has been arrested for driving while under suspension. In his confession, he told police that his friends always let him drive because he does not drink, though he has admitted to using crack cocaine. News reports stated that violations occurred across several New England states, including reckless driving and possession of narcotics in Massachusetts and a DUI conviction and sale of narcotics in Vermont. He has missed court dates related to his infractions, to which the court imposed a 6-month suspended sentence. Just 1 month before this tragedy, he received a 6-month suspended sentence. On the night of October 23, 2021, Mr. Seymour made the decision to blatantly disregard not only the law, but the well-being of all others by driving with a suspended license after, by his own admission, having smoked crack cocaine. After hitting our daughter Megan with his car and throwing her 65 feet in the air, he got out of his car, saw her laying on the ground, barely alive, heard someone attending to Megan say they were unable to find a pulse. He said, and pardon me, fuck me, I hit her. Then walked back to his car and proceeded to tell his girlfriend that Megan was sitting up and she was fine. Then he left the scene of the accident. Upon returning to the car, he borrowed to its owner. He did not disclose the incident, nor did he disclose that anything was amiss. The next day, he confronted by his friend about damage to the car. Seymour said that he did not know the cause of the damage. When it became clear that the car may have been involved in the fatal hit and run of our daughter, he begged his friend not to turn him in as he was on probation. 2 weeks later, Mr. Seymour turned himself into police when it was clear that an arrest warrant was imminent. Prior to surrendering to police, the defendant shaved off all of his head and facial hair in a possible attempt to destroy any evidence of previous drug use. Suffolk police set his bond to $750,000, and the judge at Mr. Seymour's arraignment raised the bond to $850,000, stating, "I am really concerned about public safety in this situation." Mr. Seymour has been charged with evading responsibility with a motor vehicle, but could also have faced other charges, including operating under the influence and negligent homicide. He had remained at the scene. By leaving the scene, Seymour avoided any impairment testing or inspection of the contents of his vehicle, denying the state the opportunity of additional charges. We respectfully submit that this was not a simple hit-and-run case with an injury. This case resulted in the death of our daughter, Megan, a 20-year-old college student with a promising future, a community of family and friends, and a life expectancy of over 80 years. It is hard to understand that Seymour, who has shown a lack of accountability and remorse, will only face 2.5 years in prison. The death of our daughter should never have happened if this individual had followed the law and did not drive under his suspended license. We ask that all involved aspects of the legal system ensure that Frederick Seymour serve out the maximum time possible. We also ask that his license be revoked permanently. He has shown over and over that he is not capable of being a responsible citizen behind the wheel and has devastated the lives of many by his careless and heinous behavior. He must be made to understand that he is not above the law. Every minute of each and every day as we continue to live our lives with our beautiful daughter, Megan, we struggle with visions from that night of her being hit, laying dying in the middle of the road, a road that we have to travel every day. Of the moment when the doorbell rang at midnight and the police officers told us that Megan was deceased, and of having to make phone calls to her brother and sister, knowing that their lives would never be the same. Megan was the light and the laughter of our family, and she had a special relationship with each of us. Words cannot express the pain and sorrow we feel or how much we miss her each and every day. We hope that the prior history of Mr. Seymour, the crime that he committed, his attempts to evade responsibility, and that the utter lack of accountability or remorse that he showed after it happened will ensure that he will serve the maximum time possible and that he never gets behind the wheel again. Sincerely, Michael and Patricia Boisine. Thank you, Madam Chair. That is all that I have for today.
Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Okay, so now we're going to deliberate on the record. Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the victim's parents for the letter that they did. And certainly I can't speculate on charges that aren't in front of me. Evading responsibility is evading with a sentence of 12 years execution suspended after 5. It's not a simple evading responsibility. That's an important thing to look at. What else is important is just his victim statement is just frustrating. Is the impact on the family, right? Somebody stepped off the curb and was struck by somebody who stopped, went up, saw that somebody was being taken care of by medical personnel, and then decided in their own self-interest to do the same. Part of this is what we look at when we're trying to decide if somebody is suitable for parole in the community, is what happened inside and what kind of offender change has occurred. For me, something that's here is that he has no DRs. There's no disciplinary reports. He's taken 2 programs, Tier 2, which addresses substance use, and he's taken Voices, which should really take a look at the impact to victims and the impact on other people in your life because of the decisions that you made. And, in listening to Mr. Seymour, I can't glean where he understands that he has an issue with substances and is going to do something about it. He admitted himself he went off the rails when his mother passed, and one of his things today is I need to get out to take care of my father. Well, I asked the question, what happens when your father passes? And what I didn't get was, when I get out, I'm going to go to these programs and I'm going to do these things to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself. Didn't hear that. It wasn't a part of what was presented. And even when I asked, it didn't get presented. The thing is that when people have a problem with substances, unless we put stuff in action every single day, history is going to repeat itself. He says he needs to go out and take care of his father. it's not a big enough thing for me to excuse everything else that wasn't given to us today. So where I am is that we have a history. We have a criminal history that shows nothing good when it comes to vehicles.
Right.
There is nothing that, other than I'm never going to do that. Well, we told the state's attorney we're never going to do that either. Right. So there's nothing that guarantees that he doesn't come out and just get behind the wheel again.
Right.
And what happens at that point? So giving consideration to everything, what Mr. Seymour presented today through the questioning that we did and through the input from Mr. and Mrs. Voisin, I can't get there in terms of peace. I don't know that there's anything that he can take that in the next year and a half or two that are that's going to change my mind or somebody else's mind when it comes to this case. So for me, based upon the injury and impact to the victim's family, the nature and circumstances of the offense, and its criminal history, I don't see bringing it back.
Okay. Thank you for that very detailed opinion on your reason for Mr. Seymour's denial. And I agree with everything that you have said. I just have two things to add to that. Just looking at his criminal history, he has been given many opportunities to correct his behavior, and he has not. And I see Mr. Seymour as a public safety issue. So I'm right with you for the reasons. I wanted to also add inadequate evidence of offender change because he took the two programs and just didn't seem to have benefited the way that we would have expected him to share with us.
Right.
Okay.
So what was concerning for me is, when I first read it, I go, oh boy, he must have a major issue with alcohol. But here he is, he's driving the car because his friend's too intoxicated to drive the car, or his license is already suspended. And then this incident happens where this poor young individual drops the phone in the middle of the road, and then we know what happens. I think that Mr. Pohl pretty much covered it all. Your follow, Madam Chair. So I'm on the same page. I had, I know you were talking. I had nature, victim, criminal history. I don't know whatever else.
You agree with the inadequate? Okay. In the case of Frederick Seymour, inmate number 197798, there is a motion to deny request for discretionary parole for these reasons: nature and/or circumstances of the current offense, criminal history, injury and impact to victim's family, and inadequate evidence of offender change. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Mr. Seymour, I'm so sorry we could not help you today, but we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Frederick Seymour 1977.
So what happens from here? What happens now?
So you will have to serve the rest of your time there.
With no chance for parole? Is that what it is?
Nope.
Correct.
And how is this possible? We watch this, and all I think is, how is this possible? How do you have a monster, a roach, a disgusting excuse who shows no empathy, who shows no, just all about me. I need to get out to my father. I need to get out to my father. Me, me, me. If I had to hear him talk about his father one more time, who only has his daughter to help him, but it's too much on. What? But you know what? Monsters exist. They do. Should we be upset at the monster? We can be disgusted by the monster, but shouldn't our rage be at the system? The system that not only let him be in the position to end her life, but the system that only keeps him locked up for 5 years. I'm just so pissed off. And the opportunity to come up for parole and put the family through this whilst they just basically buried her. After just 2.5 years, a judge did this. Why? You know, so many of us, until we start watching this, myself first, and this is what gets me so mad, I wouldn't think it would be possible. I would not believe that a judge, looking at his record, everything wrong that he's done, a history of driving under suspended, of narcotics selling, his license was he was given a suspended sentence 1 month before he did this. Instead of locking him up, a judge gave him a 6-month suspended sentence. And then, so they give him a 12-year sentence for this. But the judge suspends all of it but 5 years with parole eligibility after 2.5. How is that possible? What redeeming factor does this disgusting human being have? What benefit to society is it to not keep him locked up for the maximum? Why not 20 years, the maximum? And you know what's sick about this? I mean, a lot is sick about this. But if you didn't know about the details of the crime, when Richard does the research on it, he puts everything in a spreadsheet. And if you saw just the record, all he is in for is evading responsibility. That's his charge. Leaving the scene of an accident. It's only after he does the research, but then he highlights it in green, which is what we use for DUI. And then you watch the parole hearing, and it's even worse than we could have imagined. What is it that these people? It's not a coincidence. You know, how many of these parole hearings have we seen in Louisiana where there's a monster who's going up for parole who did this? You would think that I don't know how it works out. Is it that good people don't apply for parole early? They have too much guilt? Why is it that we only see monsters? Come up for parole, who take lives driving. I know it's not true. I know that it can happen to non-monsters, but that's all we see. It's like there's a particular breed, we call them a roach. They're like the roaches. I mean, I just like to unpack his hearing, the parole hearing. He lies the entire hearing. Oh, I made a big mistake. I shouldn't have gotten in the car and driven. Why not? If you claim you were sober, what did you do wrong? He's claiming he's sober. I'm sober. I don't even drink, except when it's my birthday. I mean, like, where's Mr. Marabello when you need him? I mean, this board, they didn't ask a single question. If the DA or the victim's advocate, when came up and read that statement, if she didn't read that, we would have had no idea. Except for the unpacking that we do. We would have known, but one wouldn't know. Oh, he was nervous, so he left the scene. I mean, then we get all the details. Of course he was high. Of course that's why he left the scene. Then he disappears for over a week while they're searching for him. He shaves his hair. He gets rid of the evidence. Of course we know what happened. Why would the parole board even entertain his pathetic lie after lie? And then even at the way it ended, he's like, does that mean that I'm denied? I'm sorry. I'm just so enraged. I'm sure you are as well. How can we not be? How can the system fail over and over and over again? How can a judge be allowed to do this? I mean, how come you don't give the maximum possible sentence that was possible, 20 years? It makes no sense. And here it is, his confession. I just don't get, why was there any plea deal in this case? He left the scene of the crime. That's that. You just throw the book at him. He's not going to win a jury trial. A Windsor locks. Okay, he admitted in a sworn statement that he smoked Pepsi Cola before fatally hitting a 20-year-old UConn student, according to an arrest warrant. He turned himself into police on Friday, but by the way, after he had to. Wasn't the kindness of his heart. They had a warrant for him for the October 23 hit and run. He was held in jail over the weekend. They arraigned Monday. He remains in police custody, and his bond was increased to $800,000. Seymour is, and the judge wants to seem so tough. He's like, he initially had a $730,000, and he's like, no, I'm going to make it $800,000. I'm a tough judge. Seymour is charged with evading responsibility in the death of serious injury, accident, and driving under suspended license. He is in detention at the Hartford Correctional Center and is scheduled to return to court December 2nd, according to State Department records. So he walked into the police station, announced on Friday to confess. Numerous media reports, outlets report. He said in a sworn written statement that he had been having trouble sleeping, and I feel guilty about it, and I want to do the right thing, according to the arrest report made. Okay. He said that in a statement that he had smoked some, I just smoked a little bit of Pepsi with friends the day of the accident. When Seymour asked to borrow his friend's Jeep Cherokee, the warrant states. Just after 10:30 p.m., October 23rd, he was driving down Route 159 when Megan Boycine was crossing the street with friends on the way to a sorority party. Here she is, 20 years old, barely a care in the world, with a bunch of friends, 10:30 at night, going to sorority party. Then she dropped her phone and card carrier in the middle of the road. And as she tried to gather them, the car hit her. She was dragged down and thrown 65 feet. Seymour said that he was driving the speed limit and saw something flash across the road in front of us, documents state. However, one of Voisin's friends reported seeing a car traveling so fast it must have been flying. After she was hit, a number of cars pulled up to help. One witness told investigators they saw him pacing and saying explicitive, "Me, I hit her. F me, I hit her," before he fled the scene, according to the Hartford Courant. Seymour said in a statement that he panicked and ran away, but thought the girl was alive and being cared for, the Warren states. He also said in a statement that he learned the following day that the girl had died and played dumb when his friend asked him about the damage to the car. The Warren states, after police put a call asking for information about the damaged Jeep Cherokee, the friend called to say he thought his car might have been involved. Imagine what he must have gone through when he told them that, huh? Imagine that. And somehow he gets 12-year sentence, all suspended but 5 with opportunity for parole after 2.5. And you just gotta say, are you kidding me? And 1 month before this accident, he had a failure to appear, 2nd degree, for a suspended license thing. So he had, and all they gave him was a 6 months suspended sentence. And it was literally just 1 month later. It's scary looking at the records. It's just I just don't know what to say. You know, these are the kind of hearings that I go back and wish that I would have said this and would have said that when I'm listening to with you in the premiere. See, I don't listen to my recordings before they go live, and that's why that's why sometimes they upload without sound. And the reason that I don't listen is probably because if I did, I would never upload, because I'd always find ways to critique myself and say, oh, I meant to say this, I didn't say that. And there's a lot here I want to say. When listening to the hearing, I took all my notes in the yellow pad of the points I wanted to touch on, but I misplaced the yellow. I don't know where I put it. And I just had to jump in and rage. You know, like I said earlier, we're disgusted by the monster. We're disgusted by this sorry excuse. But we can't change monsters. There's something wrong with them, whether it's genetic or I don't know. But what we can fix, at least theoretically, is the broken system that allowed him to be on the streets to do this, and then is putting him back on the street. He's getting out no matter what in 1 year. I mean, his good time date, I guess for time served, his maximum release date is 9/30/2026, so 2 years. About a little more than 2.5 years, I guess. That's it. I mean, he's going to be out on the street. And who's going to say he doesn't do this again? And even if you can guarantee he wouldn't do it again, how is that justice for the victim? And the victims, all they care, you know, they just kept stating over and over, how can you guarantee, how can you keep our community safe? How they are not. The people put in charge of keeping us safe are clearly not. And it's so evident to anyone with critical thinking skills, yet they somehow do this, and we see it over and over and over. And at some point, it's going to have to stop. At some point, these people in charge, they're so smart and they're so sophisticated, and well, you don't understand. You're just sheeple. You're just common folk. And it's like, no, you can't talk down to us. This is not nothing. You don't need to be smart to realize that he's a danger to society. You don't need to be have a PhD to know that he should not be getting out after 5 years. Anyways. Thank you, Richard. And thank you all for everything. And with that, I'll let you go.